Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Too Good to Be True podcast. I am your host, Pascal Mayela. Today, on this bonus content, the real talk, we're going to review, like I promised, the Vince McMahon documentary on Netflix. So those who already saw, you saw it. Who those who did not see it, I invite you to look at it right now. It is pretty good. It's very interesting to watch. And before we start talking about this, let's uh, say this uh, about this documentary. This is before the Janel Grant lawsuit. So everything I'm gonna say this is before the Janelle Grant lawsuit, and they pretty much interviewed him during the 2000, I believe that was in 2021. So that was long before that. And before I give my thought, I want you guys to go to my YouTube channel to subscribe, like, notify, and leave your comment because your comment means a lot to me, and we can grow this podcast together. Or if you want to see me on listening on any podcast, you can listen to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, any platform you can find it, you can listen to it. Now let's get right to it. What is my thought on this documentary? I thought it was pretty good. Good. If you are a diehard fan, wrestling fan like myself, you're not gonna learn anything new. If you are a casual fan who don't know about wrestling, this is for you guys. This documentary, it wasn't for the diehard fan like myself and other people who do the podcast talk about wrestling 24/7. It's for the people who uh don't watch wrestling. That was for them. Now, like I said, this interview took place in 2021, long before the Janelle Grant, the Vince McMahon resigned. So this is what during the 2021. So we did have some special appearance in the documentary. So sorry, sorry. We had Vince, the McMahon family, like usual. Stone Cold, The Rock, Hulk Hogan, John Cena, Bret Hart, Trish Stratus, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Tony Atlas, Cody Rhodes, like I said, Bruce Pritchard, Paul Heyman, David Shoemaker, and and who else did I miss? Who else did I miss? Eric Bischoff, Dave Meltzer. All of them were interviewed. So so one thing I learned from episode one, so we're gonna go to episode one, Junior. So Tony Adams says something about what is wrestling. So wrestling is more of using turning to fantasy to reality, and they were doing this because of what was going on in what was going on in the world. And and Bret Hart said it best. Also for him, also that wrestling is an art form. So that's why he considered himself as an artist, which is true. If you ask any fan or any wrestler who's their favorite wrestler, the majority people will say Bret the Hitman Hart. So even I was growing up in Canada, Bret the Hitman Hart was everything. So I'm not surprised about that. They talk about Vince McMahon about his childhood, Vince McMahon's childhood, which I he did not really talk about him. He did talk about when he was a little boy. He grew up in a trailer with his mom and his stepfather and his brother. And when he was 12, when he was 12 years old, he finally met his biological father. So Also, when we talk about the stepfather, we're gonna get into it because he abused them when he was a child. So we're gonna get to it in a couple of episodes in this on this review. So one time when he met his father, his real father, Vince McMahon Senior, he came out from a hug and he didn't. The father didn't really have an effect on Vince McMahon Senior because you know because it is like what it's kind of strange. He always wanted the love from his father, but he never got it. So that was pretty much surprising. And I know every a son really want a relationship with his father, but never got it. Just the same thing with Shane McMahon, with him and his father Vince McMahon. So it will go around about it. So now when and also they talked about the Linda McMahon and Vince McMahon when they met. I mean Vince McMahon was 16, she was 13. So that's that was a pretty romantic love. And but also he talked about how he got his start from the WWE business. He became an announcer because one of those employee that Vince McMahon Senior did not pay, and when he left, Vince McMahon Senior, like Vince Junior said, he just chuckled with his coins and he said, "Who's going to replace the announcer?" So this is when he decided to go out with Vince McMahon Senior. I mean Junior. I'm gonna say junior and senior, so but they're the same thing. So um, when you were listening to Vince McMahon announce, and and I'll be honest with you, um, he was telling stories because a lot of those wrestlers back in the day did not tell stories in the ring. So Vince McMahon wanted to attract the audience by telling them a story. So, like I said, like we tell every time, wrestling is a storytelling. Like I said, we turn it to fantasy to reality. Another thing I was pretty much amazed that Vince McMahon Senior wanted to sell his company, and he did not want to. The funny thing that he did not want to sell to Vince McMahon Jr. It was Gorilla Monsoon, which I gotta admit that I think it is true, but imagine if it was Gorilla Monsoon. How would the wrestling of today wrestling will affect today in this society? How will wrestling will be if Gorilla Monsoon if was the company the guy who bought the Vince McMahon Senior's company? And also I was amazed is that Vince McMahon Senior did not make it easy for Vince McMahon Junior because um, he thinks that he will fail. So the one thing that like I said when he wanted to sell to Gorilla Monsoon, that there was a lot of tension between Gorilla Monsoon and Vince McMahon um, Jr. because Vince Jr. thought that if his father fell to him, you know, it would not make it easier. But I will tell you what, I'm glad Vince McMahon Sr. decided to go with Vince McMahon Jr. because we don't know what would happen if wrestling would exist. let's say this. We don't know what would happen if wrestling will survive with Gorilla Monsoon. And also, don't forget, this is also a era, the period where an era that it was pretty much territory. That's what in in episode one was, because Vince McMahon saw the bigger picture, that he wanted to box his competition by going to those territories, and buying every superstar. You can make more money in WWE than in those territories like the AWA, the Stampede, the Mid Atlantic, and the Mid South, so on and so forth. And basically, what he was doing, Vince, it wants to buy the territory because mainstream will. It was time for a change. Eric Bischoff said that in the documentary that that Vince was the devil because he wanted to buy all the territory, but they didn't see the bigger picture. Because remember, cable TV wasn't on the rise, and how it will affect the people who will watch wrestling across the United States. So that I think that was pretty good. But the territory said, the people who worked at the territory said to Vince McMahon Sr., look at what your son is trying to do. He's trying to ruin the business of wrestling, and so on and so forth. Yeah, and Tony Atlas got a great quote. I just wrote down this quote because everything I wrote is on that paper. Look. I took note everything. So Tony Atlas said that he got a great quote. He said, "A dog eats a dog wanted," something like that. I'll just paraphrase it, and that is true. And also, when we go back to when Vince McMahon bought the territories, he was buying the top guys who were already a made superstar to come to the WWE, you know, to be exposed. For example, the Roddy Piper, Paul Orndorff, Hulk Hogan, Tito Santana, all those wrestlers that back in the territory days went to the WWE, went to the WWE. And now Vince McMahon in this documentary said that he was looking for the top guy. Who could be the top guy? Could be the face of the company? And Vince said that uh, his first option was Dusty Rhodes, which I was surprised. I was surprised he wanted Dusty Rhodes to be the face of the company. He was charismatic. He was charismatic. He was blonde, and also that Cody Rhodes told a story that when told a story that uh, he told Dusty Rhodes when he was alive. God rest his soul. Dusty Rhodes said that Vince McMahon wanted Dusty Rhodes to be the face of the company, in which he was charismatic, but you know he wasn't that guy. So Vince McMahon chose Hulk Hogan to be the guy, and I'm glad he did that. I'm glad he did that because he was different. Even though both of them, Hogan and Dusty, were charismatic. Sorry, Hulk Hogan looked different. He was blonde, and also he had the physique, and he was believable. Dusty was charismatic, but he wasn't. I'm not saying he wasn't believable, but he looked different from Hulk Hogan. So that's why Vince chose Hogan over Dusty Rhodes. And Another thing that he said that Hulk Hogan, this is where Hulk Hogan is Hulk Hogan in an interview. He said that talking about the Rocky Three. Remember Rocky Three with still Sylvester Stallone? Everybody knows the movie. And Vince McMahon Sr. did not want Hulk Hogan to be part of the movie because if he's part of the movie, uh, he will fire him and will be blackballed from the wrestling. But which I'm surprised because after that, Vince McMahon Sr. brought him back because of the Hulkamaniac character was on the rise. So so after that, Vince wanted to put Hulk Hogan the belt because remember, uh, Bob Backlund was the face of the company, and he wanted to find a way to put the belt on Hulk Hogan because he didn't because Vince Jr. did not want babyface versus babyface. It was pretty much unheard of back then, you know. So he decided to put the belt on Iron Sheik, who Iron Sheik was was a champion. He was portrayed as the foreigner because remember back in the day, uh, people uh, uh, who were from were a foreigner country were the enemy. For example, funny enough, they showed the video of like every move from Rocky Four, Back in the Future, back in the 1980s, and also it was a different time. Remember, there was a different era. The foreign were considered of the enemy, like the Japanese, the Iraq, the Iranian, and and the Russian. They were like considered of the enemy. That because, like I said, they portrayed fantasy to reality. You can't boo the foreigner, but you can do that in wrestling. So this is pretty much amazing to me. And in January 1984, Hulk Hogan beat Iron Sheik for the belt, and this is where the start of Hulkamaniac. Another thing um that I was surprised that before his death, before he died, Vince McMahon's senior was very proud of his son, and this is the first time he said that he's very proud of him and he loved him. You know, but they had a different view from it because Vince McMahon Senior, according to Tony Atlas, and people say, "What Tony Atlas was in the documentary?" Because he had to speak for the people from the '70s. Because I know there's a lot of wrestlers who did wrestle in the '70s no longer with us. So Tony Atlas can be the guy, the witness. So I didn't have a problem with Tony Atlas being in this documentary. So he said that there was always been a clash between him and Vince McMahon and Junior because Vince McMahon wanted to grow the business because cable TV, like I said earlier, cable TV and national cable was a big thing. It was pretty much the future, and everybody else were looking at the territories and don't see the bigger picture. And this is why I said that Vince McMahon uh, uh, Senior did not understand that time has changed, that society has changed. I mean, now we have cable TV. A lot of people will watch wrestling. It's pretty good for business, and also you wanted to expose the talent around the world with cable TV. So they talk about MTV, Cyndi Lauper, and met like Captain Lou Albano in the airplane. And people forget that MTV back in the '80s was a big deal. The rock and wrestling connection. And and at a time she was working with Wendy Richter, Hall of Famer, Hall of Famer, and also we you have the appearance of Mr. T, which will create a WrestleMania one, and and before that, Vince McMahon took a vacation like for 3 days, and he had an idea to create WrestleMania, but he took a bigger risk, which is I'm surprised that he said that Vince McMahon said that if WrestleMania fail, you're gonna lose a lot of money, which which is pretty surprising because I remember watching the if you really watch the rise and fall of WCW, um, and I remember this because I forgot who said this. They said that they paid what's going to take them for WCW to be back on TBS. So for that, they paid Vince McMahon $1 million for WrestleMania for Vince McMahon to give TBS to WCW, and I don't know why because I don't know why I don't understand that because if WCW back in the day it paid $1 million for Vince McMahon for WrestleMania, why do they think it's going to be a risk? So that part I didn't understand. And let's go back to WrestleMania. It was a huge success. It got the attention of the people who don't watch wrestling on TV, in which it started the the Saturday Night Main Event, which back then it was big. So you can watch a wrestling on Saturday. It was a groundbreaking for them until it ended in 1992. There was a moment they brought it back. There was a moment they brought it back, that like in the early 2000s. You know, it wasn't what it was. But now, and I believe this year on December they're gonna bring back Saturday Night Live and Saturday Night Event, sorry, which is pretty great for that. They talk about the incident of the 2020 ABC News on December 1984. John Stassel, who did he interviewed it, Hulk Hogan, wanted to know if wrestling is fake. So Hulk Hogan stooge to told Vince McMahon, this guy doesn't want to talk about wrestling. He is exposing wrestling. And you got the David Shock incident when he slapped John Stassel and both on his ear. Actually slapped him both times. And I gotta say this, I'm glad he did that because I'm glad he did that because if he had done it, you know, if he had exposed the business, that would be very bad. And also, Tony Allen said that back then, the business, they were very protective of the business. So, so I'm glad he did that. And there was another incident that he talked about, the Richard Belzer show, when he put him in a chin lock and and you guys see this reaction when he did the chin lock and he let him go. He collapsed and hit his head under the ground. And we're like, damn. And at the same time, he was bleeding. And he bled in his nose, and that created a lawsuit for John Stossel and Richard Belzer. Mhm. So, whew, that was pretty good. Now, we end at episode one. We go into episode two, entitled Heat. So on this one, They talked about how wrestlers work 52 years, 7 day a week, 365 days. Was pretty much the schedule was pretty brutal, which it really I don't say this, it really bothers me that Tony Allen said, I saw a lot of wrestlers said 7 day a week, 52 day a week, a year. I mean, yes, the schedule was brutal back then. It was very brutal. Now it's pretty cool right now. It's pretty little cool off a little bit, but that's pretty much exaggerating. You know, wrestling did not always wrestle 7 day a week. Well, so that's pretty much exaggerating. And also to say that back in the 80s, it also a lot of those wrestlers use painkiller to 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 uh to relax their body and so on and so forth. I mean, yes, back in the day, like I said, the schedule was pretty much brutal, but at the same time, uh, they were using painkiller, which will create a huge controversy, which we were going to talk about it in later. So they talk about Jesse Ventura unionized before WrestleMania 2, and they said that Hulk Hogan on snitch and told Vince McMahon that Jesse the Body Ventura want to start a union, which during the 1990 I believe it was 1992 lawsuit, uh, one of the lawyers asked you can ask a lawyer of Jesse Ventura asked if you can ask anything to Vince McMahon, and Jesse Buddy Ventura said, "Go ask him who was the one who snitched on on Vince that he's going to start a union." And he said Hulk Hogan. That's Vince McMahon said Hulk Hogan, and this is why Jesse Ventura and Hogan do not like each other anymore. And I just want to say this for the union. I understand that try to unionize is pretty good because they want to get more paid, but it was not going to work. Remember, the good Jim Ross used to say this: uh, you can even have 10 people to agree what to have for lunch. You're not going to have people a union. Now you can never have a union, and that is currently true. That is 100% true. And Tony Atlas said this on the interview that it was never going to work because the wrestler were thinking about themselves first before the business because they were doing what's better for them and for their family instead of uh, what's the best for as a collective. Now today they get a ton of money compared back then. So no, union having a union is not going to work. Not going to work at all. He's talking. They talked about also WrestleMania 3, and they're talking about the what is the real number attended. People say it was 93,000, and David Meltzer said that it was 70,000. Well, I mean, who cares? Who cares? Along there was a lot of people in that Pontiac Stadium at WrestleMania 3. That's the thing that counts. There was a lot of people, and they talked about also the Hulk Hogan match with Andre the Giant. Vince approached him during the set of the Princess Bride, said that I need you to having a back surgery because you're going to face Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 3. And I would say this: Andre the Giant did not take the back surgery. He took it after the 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 match versus Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 3. You know the famous one, body slam. He Hulk Hogan body slam Andre the Giant, and they said in the documentary that that they're exaggerating, and also with the number attended, they're pretty much exaggerating. Like I remember WrestleMania 32, I didn't watch it. They said they broke the record for 1,001 thousand people who attended WrestleMania 32. You know, it was exaggerating, but at the same time, you want to have that aura to see how many people were there. So they talked about, like I said, like the story that Andre Giant never lost to Hulk Hogan. He lost. Hulk Hogan, everybody said Andre the Giant. They did. They had never faced each other. Yes, they did. They faced it in Shea Stadium. Like that. It's just for the storyline. And Hulk Hogan said that he never knew about the ending. If he's gonna win. But if you remember, if you watch the Under the Giants documentary, he said that he doesn't know. Uh, he didn't know if he's gonna put him over. And during the match, as you can, and Andre said slam, slam, and he body slammed him, and he said leg drop, and and Hogan did the leg drop, and Hogan still to this day believe that he thought he was gonna kick out. And that one, I'll say, I don't buy it at all. Andre's not gonna kick out. I knew that for very well that Andre's not gonna kick out because he was doing what's best for business. And also it was also the passing of the torch. The passing of the torch when and Hogan won the match. So they talk about the relationship between Vince and Hulk Hogan, and Hogan wanted to go to Hollywood. Vince did not want him to go to Hollywood, so they created a movie called No Holds Barred, and they said this: it's not the worst WrestleMania. Sorry, it's not the worst movie, but it's not the best movie either, too. So they talked about that. They talked about WrestleMania 6 with Ultimate Warrior versus Hulk Hogan when Hogan lost to Warrior, and you can see a little bit the facing down of Hulkamania, Hulk Hogan, popularity. Even though he lost to Ultimate Warrior wasn't that popular as Hulk Hogan. Also, he wasn't even popular in the locker room. So they talked about that. We talk about WrestleMania 7 when the match between Sergeant Slaughter and Hulk Hogan. Talk about the war in Iraq against USA, the attack of Kuwait, and they talked about also that Sergeant Slaughter got death threat uh, because they're going to kill him, kill his wife and his family. So they really dozed it down a little bit, but they still continue the story, and you can see when Hulk Hogan won against Sergeant Slaughter, it wasn't the same in '91 because the audience were very tired of Hulk Hogan. And then they talk about the George Zarian allegation. He was accused of distributing steroids in 1991, same year as WrestleMania 7. The seven, because back then, remember, steroid was a big deal in sport, and Vince McMahon wanted to start the WBF, the World Fitness, but it failed because of the stereo case. And you can see that um, a lot of those wrestlers back in the day used steroids to be looking good, to be better. That was back in the day. And Hulk Hogan talked about what he went to the Arsenio Hall, which he said that it was a big mistake. It was a big mistake to go to Arsenio Hall show, and he lied. And by the way, not only that, he lied. He lied on the Arsenio Hall show. and then Phil Mushnick is introduced in this documentary, and he was a New York Post columnist, and a lot of people hated Phil Mushnick for that because he was criticizing the company, which that's what a journalist do. A journalist criticize what he see on TV or what he see in sport. You know, he criticized. So, and they talked about the back in the day that a lot of wrestlers would abuse women, and they talked about the Jimmy Snuka with the death of Nancy Argentino in 1983, which you can watch it on the Dark Side of the Ring. You can watch it on the Dark Side of the Ring. I don't need to give the all detail, but Vince McMahon trying to put away the case of the Jimmy Snuka, because remember Jimmy Snuka was very popular, but but then he wasn't the head of the company anymore because of the death of Nancy Argentino. And also they talked about the Ring Boy scandal. Mel Phillip was the announcer of the WWE. He was bringing boys underage, and uh, they were very abused those boys. And one of them they talked about Terry Garvin was the executive in Connecticut, and Pat Patterson who was in it too. And oh yeah, the Ring Boy scandal that was pretty. I was pretty shocked about that. Mel Phillip pretty much was a pedophile for that. Which if I got a son who's working in a company, let me tell you this: if I have a son who working in a company, I would say no. I would say to my son, no, do not work there. You know, because I got a bad feeling about this guy, so on and so forth. And go back to Pat Patterson. He left the company, then came back 1 month later. So you know what it is what it is. But Tony Allen, well, let's skip the Tony Allen thing. So they talked about the Phil Donahue show. If you ever never watched the Phil Donahue show, you can watch it on YouTube. They talked about confronting Vince McMahon because of everything that's going on inside the business. You know, you can see Dave Meltzer was sitting beside him, beside Vince McMahon, and you can see Vince McMahon. He was very uncomfortable, and he said in the documentary that he wasn't afraid of confrontation, but this one he was very uncomfortable. And they talked about the female referee scandal. Rita Marie accused of Vince McMahon for rape and having sex with him, because if he wanted to keep her job, she should have sex with him. And you know, and Vince McMahon on this document says something. I just paraphrasing. In fact, he said that it was consensual. When he said consensual, my mouth said, "What the fuck?" That Vince McMahon said. What the hell is he trying to say? And and I don't know what to say because back then people were like, "Oh, we don't care." I mean, she didn't have any evidence, which is true. She didn't have any evidence of that. And also, they talked about the Geraldo Rivera scandal too. So, this I want to add that too. McMahon being indicted in 1993 because of the trial. The FBI, actually, the federal government wanted to get involved in the wrestling business to because of the everything was going on with the steroid. the steroid, everything was going on in 1993. And remember, Vince McMahon had a neck brace because everybody was thinking about, when you're a heel, you should have sympathy back in the day as a wrestler. I truly believe that Vince McMahon did have a broken neck. He did have a broken neck. So, and something I found out that in the episode 2, that the USA Network said that one of the ladies, I forgot her name, said that if Vince McMahon was guilty, USA Network will shut down wrestling. So imagine that if they shut down wrestling, will we have the Monday Night Raw or Monday Night War between WCW and WWE? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think so. If he was guilty. And they talked about also Hogan wanted to leave WWE because he can see that the fan, even though they were cheering, there was some wrestling fan were booing Hulk Hogan because he was now facing that his popularity was increasing because everybody was tired of Hulk Hogan because the 80s was done. Now we're in the 90s. So this is where Ted Turner comes into play, which Ted Turner were buying all the wrestler from WWE to join WCW. Like let's say like for example like Randy Savage, um, Hulk Hogan, all the wrestler who wrestled for Vince went to WCW. That's the same thing uh, Eric Bischoff wanted to do. He wanted to sign Hulk Hogan. So Eric Bischoff said he met Hulk Hogan on the set of Thunder of Paradise, and he wanted to sign him Hulk Hogan. Right before that, Hogan needed to testify on court for the steroid against Vince McMahon because a lot of people think that Vince McMahon was uh, adding the forcing wrestler to take steroids. And this is where we go to episode 3, where we call it Screw Job. So I don't want to get the Wendy Richter thing because we all know she got Wendy Richter with the spider. Everybody know what Fabulous Moolah. So this man got also a quote. He said he doesn't fight fair, and not. So this is Vince McMahon quote. I don't fight fair, but he's doing what's best for business. Because Wendy Richter was thinking about herself and not thinking about the business. So I got nothing to say about that. I did not watch. I wasn't born in 1980. I was born in the early 90s, so I cannot tell that for sure. So Hulk Hogan testified, like I said, on the case of Vince McMahon. If Vince McMahon told him to take steroids, and Hogan says something interesting. He said, "We go up together and we go down together." Tony Allen said that long before Vince McMahon with the steroid case, a lot of people use a steroid before they met Vince. So Vince McMahon, pretty much I'll say he's innocent because if Tony Allen said that they were using steroids during the 70s before they got in the WWE, you know, I don't think Vince McMahon will tell a lot of wrestlers to take steroids. Even though you can see people line up, and Bret Hart said in the documentary that a lot of wrestlers were line up to take their candy and take steroids. And during those times, also, it affected the business because a lot of people were leaving. There was no attending, and Vince McMahon launched the new generation era, which which Bret Hart was the face of the company. Even though Bret wasn't charismatic, which is true, he wasn't charismatic. He had some the work ethic that the rest the fan can uh, attract to, actually to look to. And he talked about the Shawn Michaels, the Razor Ramon, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, Undertaker. They were hungry, but at the same time, um, the there were a lower attention because business was pretty going down a little bit. And this were also, like I said, Ted Turner was grabbing Vince McMahon's talent and asked, and also asked Eric Bischoff, what does it take to beat Vince McMahon? Well, Eric Bischoff said that they're ahead. They were on Eastern time and over WWE. So Ted Turner gave Eric Bischoff 2 hour WCW, which in reality was one. They're talking about the May the current call in May 1996 with Scott Hall and Kevin Nash with the current call incident that happened, and they talked about kayfabe, and they say that uh, uh, um, kayfabe is like staying the illusion and always staying character. You know, Undertaker said that he always protected the character because you know back in the day it was like that. They thought wrestling was real and and a lot of wrestlers played as characters were real. So that's why Undertaker protected his character so much. You didn't see any interview, but also this is where the star we call it the dirt sheet. Those wrestling news, those wrestling news. Uh, and with the current call that I know Scott and Kevin Nash left for WCW. You couldn't suspend Shawn Michael because he was a champion. So they had to suspend it Triple H. And Triple H said something to Vince is that the world is changing, the world is involved, and Vince will not adapt this, and evolve. And funny enough, they talked about Vince McMahon suing WCW, and he said that they were doing buying every wrestler who came from WWE. And as a matter of fact, Eric Bischoff and Dave Meltzer, first time they agreed each other that Vince McMahon did the same thing during the territory days that he took a lot of wrestlers from the territory to work for him in WWE. So this is like what goes around comes back around, something like that. So I'm not going to give all the detail. On July 1996, this is where the start of the NWO. So, all right, let's take a break a little bit, then I'll come back. Let's take a little bit of break. Sorry, sorry for that. Sorry for that because there was a lot of noise, so I needed to change. I needed to change the areas because there was a lot of noise. So let's go back what I said in about July 1996 when Scott Hall and Kevin Nash had a match at Bash at the Beach. Who's the third man? And Hulk Hogan was the third man. That's where the start of the NWO. NWO was pretty much popular. And for the first time, Vince McMahon was doing the catch up, and they beat WWE 83 weeks. So we so so Vince McMahon needed to do the catch up, and also they talked about the Montreal screw job with the Bret Hart thing. Did not want to give the title to Shawn Michael because because they didn't like each other, their rivalries, and Bret Hart. People forget Bret Hart had a contract for 20 years, a 20-year contract, and that's where it led to the Montreal screw job. And he talked about at the end after the match at the Montreal screw job that Bret Hart gave Vince McMahon an uppercut. So there's two sides of it. Vince McMahon Senior said, the Junior said that he came to Bret Hart locker room, um, trying to give him the tell Bret Hart to punch him, but Bret Hart said other different thing because Bret Hart said that they were separating, and all of a sudden Bret Hart gave the uppercut, an uppercut like this, like a when you fight when you try to tussle, and at the end you give the punch, uppercut, and Bret Hart said very well, like it's like somebody ring the bell on his head. That was the uppercut. Undertaker was so mad that why Vince McMahon did it, but also he was interested in how the fight went. So, and this is where the Vince McMahon character start. You can see that Vince McMahon when he came on the ring, everybody was booing. So that's that's uh that's the end of episode 3. Let's go to episode 4. We going episode 4, the attitude. And Vince McMahon said, I never knew that he said his favorite wrestler growing up was Jerry Graham, the Graham family, and he was blonde. It was uh um pretty much the like the ultimate heel bad guy, and that he said that was his favorite wrestler growing up. And he drove also. He went to Jerry Graham red card conventional when he drove him, taught him how to wrestle, and so on and so forth. I don't and I don't want to get a lot of detail. They talked about the rise of Stone Cold, the rise of The Rock. They talked about the Vince McMahon character, which it started, and there's always been a debate like where the Attitude Era started, and Triple H said that there were a sneak peek when the Attitude Era started. Shawn Michaels said that uh, uh, started when he Shawn Michaels gazed on his short, put a lot of paper on his pants, something like that. Now they talked about WrestleMania 14. When Mike Tyson showed up, and funny moment they say that Stephanie McMahon during the 2013 interview, they asked Stephanie McMahon how was the Mike Tyson deal, something like that, and Steph looked at the somebody on the producer said, "This is right before the rape allegation, right?" Actually, that was yeah, that was the same year what the rape allegation. But Mike Tyson was a big deal. I know WCW. had Karl Malone and Dennis Rodman fight in the ring, but Mike Tyson was a bigger deal, and they know how to handle him in WWE than WCW. So Eric Bischoff said that when he heard that Mike Tyson was in WWE, he just changes his everything, his face, his cockiness, and like he took it seriously. And funny enough, because and that was back in the day with society, there was no good guy. Everything was bad guy, bad guy, bad guy. You can see in the video game and in the movie, which is funny enough. And they talked about people, and there's been a debate about what is who is Vince McMahon from the character from the real Vince McMahon, and a lot of us couldn't figure it out. They don't know what was the difference, so that was funny. And also, they talked about Eric Bischoff said that Vince McMahon it was pretty much like a ripoff from WCW because Vince McMahon copying Eric Bischoff. Eric Bischoff was the heel. Vince McMahon was the heel. NWO DX. That was a ripoff from that. Another thing for I found interesting, and Dave Meltzer, if I at least took a note, actually, and he said that it did rub a lot of people off because of the kids, and because there were a lot of kids watching back. Remember, back in the Attitude, this is where I grew up. A lot of the Attitude Era, a lot of people, including kids, was watching wrestling. They were watching the Attitude Era. Was mimicking like DX, say the word "suck it," and I grew up in the Attitude Era. So I was a little boy. So when the Monday Night War started, and they talked about if her parents will let their kid watching wrestling during the Attitude Era. In my opinion, I'm probably gonna say no, and I'm probably gonna say no to that. Because you know, because I don't want watch not let my kids watch wrestling. This all that. Now, back then when they didn't have any kids, there were things they could get away with it. Now they cannot. Back in the day they could. Right now they couldn't. Especially in the social media. Can you imagine if they did that the attitude era on social media? There will be a lot of controversial, I'll be honest with you. So they talked about that, and they talk about the death of Owen Hart. I mean, that really hurt me when they talked about the death of Owen Hart. And and remember, Owen Hart was playing the Blue Blazer, and 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 tragically he passed away like that. And this is where in this one, Brett is out of line. He said that they did that. They humiliate. I tried to humiliate Owen Hart because of Bret Hart, uh, because of Bret Hart. And I'm glad that Vince McMahon responded. He said that Bret Hart left 2 years ago, so it wasn't taking shot at him. They wanted to create Owen Hart a superstar. So this is where Bret Hart pretty lied. And the decision to continue, that was really huge controversial because when after Owen Hart during when Owen Hart died in the ring, a lot Vince McMahon wanted to. continued to wrestle, which it created a huge controversial, and you can see there was a crime in it. So I don't know what it is. I don't know why Vince McMahon continued. He should have ended the show if something like that happened. Imagine Owen Hart died. I will cancel the show. I will put it on free TV. On free TV. Actually, after a pay tribute to Owen Hart, maybe Monday night, next Monday night, they will uh do a free pay per view on Monday Night Raw. This is my opinion. So uh so we ended that episode 4. We go to episode 5, Family Affair. In this one, they talked about the pretty much the McMahon family, Shane McMahon, the relationship with his father, Stephanie McMahon, and they talked about a segment when the Triple H Stephanie segment. Remember the segment with Stephanie Mary wanted to marry Test, and they wanted to um the segment when Triple H made a marriage, in the car, so on and so forth, and they talked about the relationship um between Triple H and Stephanie off camera. But also, it's funny, interesting that they talked about the childhood. I mean, Shane was like a ring referee, ring announcer, and he debuted in WWE in 1998. Stephanie was always wanted to be part of the business, so that was pretty much interesting. They talked about the. I just want to skip uh uh the marriage stuff because that's not interesting to me. Actually, that is interesting because Vince McMahon wanted to book I wanted to marry on live TV, and Stephanie said no. So that's how they had the No Mercy 2003, 6 day I believe it was 6 day before their marriage with Triple H and Stephanie. They talked about the rise of Trish Stratus, and we know that. And the something that was interesting. They talked about the Sable thing when Sable was a big, huge star. Right after Austin and Rock, you could put Sable in the conversation in this documentary. She sued her. Sable sued WWE Vince McMahon for 10 10,000 $110 million because they were she was degrading her, pretty much abusing her during the in 1999, actually 1998, on my head. But she came back in 2003, and funny enough, Vince McMahon does not remember at all. He does not remember at all. The lawsuit of Sable. They talked about the Playboy interview, like about his sex affair. Be honest, which uh which was pretty much, like I said, uh pretty much the reductive of the real Vince McMahon, that who he is, so on and so forth, which is pretty much disgusting. They talked about the WWE go public, the Wall Street, open up a casino, it failed. Open up a restaurant, failed. Starting the XFL, it failed. Uh, they also talked about the interview with Bob Costa after the XFL failed. Yeah, I thought when I watched that, I thought that Vince McMahon wanted to punch punch Bob Costa. I'll be honest with you, man. Even though back then, uh, Bob Costa got every right to do interview, but he did not have the right to talk to criticize Vince McMahon, the character, so on and so forth. They talked about also the if I took notes, by the way, too. Talked about the WWF traded to WWE. You got to remember the Worldwide Federation. Remember, and saving animal, and this is where Vince McMahon could not win the battle, so he decided to go WWE because they were an entertaining show. So that's the thing they talked about. They talked about also Hulk Vince wanted Hulk Hogan to come back in wrestling, and having a match with of The Rock in WrestleMania 18 in the Sky Dome. Which, by the way, I will say this: this is one of my favorite match of all time. I watched it live when I was a kid. I was in second grade when I watched Hulk Hogan versus The Rock, and that was a big deal. And you can see the fan were in was cheering Hulk Hogan, booing The Rock, and The Rock knew also too. It was even though The Rock won, but the real winner was Hulk Hogan. It was his homecoming when he came back to Toronto. They talked about when Rock and Austin left. They needed to change the guard. They needed to change to find who's the next guy of the WWE company. This is where John Cena talked about his rise to his career, but we all know that before that, just to go back when I said Hulk Hogan coming back, they also had like they bringing back Eric Bischoff in 2002, Bret Hart, because it was what best for business. That's the only thing I said, best for business. And they talked about if what happened if you did not do what Vince McMahon asked you to do. And Trish Stratus says something about if you didn't do what Vince McMahon told you, you're probably going to be punished. And for example, Trish Stratus um, had a match, I believe it was against Jazz. Actually, before that, she wanted to have a segment with a lesbian segment with Tori Wilson and um, Trish said no, and she lost the belt said at WrestleMania 22 against Mickey James. But I remember, actually I didn't watch it, but I think she lost the belt over to Jazz. Remember another WWE wrestler talent back in the day, and yeah, that's true. If you didn't do the right thing that Vince told you, you're probably gonna get punished. And this is where when I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I took notes right now. Stephanie, if I'm not mistaken, if I'm not mistaken, yes, there was a segment, a story that Vince McMahon wanted to do with Stephanie McMahon with the that Vince McMahon impregnated Stephanie McMahon, and you can if you watch that documentary, Stephanie McMahon, the producer asked Stephanie, there was a moment in the doc in any segment that you refused to do, and she said yes, and she was very uncomfortable to talk about it, but Vince himself wasn't hesitant. So that's what I said. Vince McMahon is a freak of nature, a maniac for that. So we talked about the Stephanie McMahon pregnant segment with that the Vince McMahon wanted to pregnant Stephanie and then realized that Shane McMahon pregnant her, but pretty much disgusting. I'll be honest with you, pretty much disgusting. And they talked about the relationship between Sh- Shane and Vince. They say um it was hard to have a relationship with his father because Shane was always considered the black sheep of the family. And Paul Heyman told a story of a creative idea which Vince McMahon refused on a dinner table. So Vince took a knife. He told Shane try to stab him right here on the chest if you really believe how you're creative because once you do that Actually, if you did not do it, that show me you realize that you don't have the guts to do it, or you don't have uh, the guts to do it to get rid of me. So 2009, Shane McMahon left the company. This is where we go in. It, I believe it was episode. Yeah, I think it was six episode. My bad. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I try to catch up a little bit. Yeah, I talk about episode five, the affair. Now this is where we go to episode six, the finish. So interesting. Vince said he had three thinking on his head. The first, he's talking about what he told him to do. The second one is to what is it? The second was to who was talking to, something like that. And the third is like tapping whatever he wanted to do. And the producer said that what's the brain sticking right now? You said nothing about half, nothing is having fun and having sex. Sex. That's pretty disgusting in his mind. But we're gonna skip the WrestleMania 23 because they talked about the comparison of Vincent Trump. That's not important. The most important we talked about is the segment of Vince McMahon midlife crisis and the limo explosion. You know, talked about the death of Vince McMahon and a storyline that had to be in hold because of the Chris Benoit's death, killing his wife and his family. They talked about that. And this is where Chris Nowinski is, is in the documentary. He's talked about that Chris Benoit has CTE, and Vince McMahon. I mean, Vince McMahon is bullshitting people, and he said that he got a rage. Really, Vince? That is very very ignorant of you to realize that Chris Benoit did have a CTE, and the worst of it is Stone Cold Steve Austin. He looked very bad, and I think he would get a lot of heat for this. He uh uh said that he doesn't believe in concussion. He doesn't believe in CTE. He said that he can remember. He said if I remember, he quoted that he also if you said that if you're doing something wrong, that probably gonna let you know that you had CTE, something like that. Austin doesn't believe CTE. I just want to say that, and thank God Austin changed his style because if I think the only time when he broke his neck, that's the best thing that happened to him. Because imagine if he hadn't has broken his neck. Do you think Steve Austin's style of wrestling will be the same? No. I'm glad he changed his style because he went more grounded, you know, grounded wrestling, not doing half flying thing. Uh, this is why since Steve Austin was a lot of bullshit. I mean, he took a lot of heat, and that's why they decided to start with the chair shot in the head. I'm glad that Chris Nowinski before we talked about the chair shot. Um, I'm glad Chris Nowinski got involved because they studied Chris Benoit's head and he got really really a CTE thanks to his father to give it the brain to study him about Chris Benoit's brain. And Vincent McMahon did a called Chris Nowinski of saying, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" He got rage rash, but Chris Risky confirmed that he got CTE. So I'm glad that Chris Risky go to the perform. He went to the performer of the WWE talking about CTE. Now the new protocol right now. I'm glad they changed that because no more chair shot in the head, which is pretty just great because even though he made it a great sound,
it wasn't good because you hit the chair in the head. People were, I mean, wrestlers, you know, hitting a chair on the head is not that good because people will have CTE. So it also not just in wrestling, in football, hockey, soccer. I mean, they talked about CTE. Sorry, remember the Tua thing? I believe it was last year when he had CTE. I mean, he fell off not once but twice. Same thing like this year. Tua had CTE. So I'm glad that they changed the way of using of the CTE, the chair shot in the head. They changed it. They talk about normal blood because of sponsor, and they talked about also that moving to TV 14, TV PG, which by the way, speaking of chair shot, Undertaker talked about during WrestleMania 30 that Undertaker had CTE, and Vince McMahon did not believe it. He said that he was, if I remember what he said, he was psychological shock because he's going to lose in Undertaker. Mind you, he doesn't remember that he went to the hospital with the Undertaker and consulted his wife after the match. So that's pretty much BS. They talked about the interview Armin Katan doing an interview with Vince McMahon talked about the wrestlers die under 40 because they work for you because everything was going on and this I'll call it I mean I'm glad he called it because he looked like a scumbag Vince McMahon on that interview making funny face and he said that I bear no responsibility. Now, let me just slap the hand of Armin Katelan's hand and making funny faces because I'm a 5-year old in a 55-year-old body. Man, he looked like a scumbag on this one, on this interview. They talked about the wellness policy. Like I said, going to PG, ended the TV 14 era, and I think a lot of people. I think I think it was good. I'll say this. I think from a business standpoint, it looked good because a lot of sponsor, a lot of the stock was going up. But for the diehard wrestling who grew up in the Attitude Era, uh, I mean, they did not like it because, like I said, I understand that. I understand people said that they wanted the go back what the way it was like the Attitude Era, but I will say this. Society has changed. You got to evolve. Because imagine if they did that going back to the attitude era. They know they cannot go back. They can't go back to the back what it was. Because if they did that, uh, uh, you know how many sponsor every sponsor what would happen? You know what would happen if they did that? They will lose sponsor, a lot of sponsor. They will get a lot of lawsuits, and people will criticize them on social media. So that's why the PG era, even though I agree that there were some segment during the PG era wasn't that great, and you can see like for example the Muppet Show, the Muppet. Remember they were hosting WWE. I mean, my God. I mean, my God. But also they talked about the Diva Give It a Chance. They talked about the return of Shane McMahon 2016 facing the Undertaker WrestleMania Hell in a Cell. and they talked about the relationship, like I said, with his father. He always wanted the relationship with his father. This is the first time that Vince hugged. his son Shane to say he loved him. And there was a story of this back in 2001. He wanted to look the love from his father, and they had a match between Kurt Angle and tried, and this is where Kurt Angle suplexed Shane on the glasses wall during the King of the Ring to have to have the love for his father. That's why he did it. He wanted that effect. And after that, Shane always wanted to, you know, wanted to own the WWE company, but they know that Shane came out and wasn't the guy. So it always going to be Triple H and Stephanie because Shane was like Tony Adams said, Shane was too nice. Stephanie looked like his dad. But I always wonder what would happen if Shane took over the company. I just want to know. I just want to know that what would happen. And I'm glad that Shane McMahon left the company. Probably he's gonna get his own AEW because there was a picture of him with the young boys. I think Shane going to AEW probably is gonna be a good thing, but we don't know what's gonna happen. The producer asked Vince, "Do you think one day Vince McMahon is gonna retire?" And Vince responds, he said that he doesn't consider him to retire because if he could, if he retired, he will stop growing. If you want to retire, go retire and die. And a lot of wrestlers said that same thing. What would happen? They don't have any answer until the June 2022. Vince McMahon had to step down because he had an affair with a former employee for $3 million $3 million. And, but he was resigning, but he was still a part of the creative team. So this is where it led to Vince McMahon final day on SmackDown. You know, there was a lot of lawsuit in 2006 with the tenant salon claimed that she was sexually assaulted by Vince McMahon. They talked about the Ashley Mazzaro got raped during a tour on Kuwait with a fake army. They talked about back to January 2023 that Vince McMahon was returning. A lot of people were not surprised. Corey Wood said that he wasn't surprised. Stephanie McMahon was resigned. He didn't want to be associated with his father. They talked about the merger of the TKO and that the Vince McMahon had sold his company. And this is where the same thing with happened on January 23, 2024 when him with the deal with Netflix. The producer asked Bruce Pritchard that if he saw everything, the saw the video of the Netflix that they did. They said yes, and he said that it sucks because I thought it was a got you moment, something like that. And 3 days later, they talked about Janel Grant scandal. Everything what was happening. They showed a text message where it was pretty much disgusting. Uh, Having like a threesome and using a sex toy named after wrestlers. Brock Lesnar was mentioned in this documentary, which surprised me. And this is where Vince McMahon resigned for good. At the end of the episode, they all asked every wrestler, "What will Vince McMahon's legacy will be?" And people had a hard time to answer that question. Tony Atlas was the only one who said that that he is the greatest promoter of all time. And Vince McMahon said he doesn't know about his legacy. So that's all for the Vince McMahon documentary. Like I said, it was a good documentary. I wish they had more detail, but it is what it is. That was a Netflix documentary, not a W. That was a. It wasn't a WWE documentary. It was like a WWE documentary on Netflix for the casual fan who don't know about wrestling. But thank you very much for listening for this real talk of the document of the Vince McMahon review documentary. If you want to follow me on social media, it's on Instagram. It's Pascal underscore Mayala underscore 15. X formerly Twitter at Belly versus PMM. If you want to follow me on listen to this podcast, you can listen on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcast. If you want to see me visual, you can see me on my YouTube channel, Too Good to Be True podcast. I'm gonna upload it on my YouTube video and upload it on Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcasts. And that will say thank you very much for listening to this podcast, and I'll see you next time.